Hello.
Yeah.
Hello, Roman, and welcome to the Free Lunch. It's my little podcast where we like to talk about interesting things to do with uh, essentially leadership with interesting people. And you're my guest today, so I'm extremely excited to have you along. Roman Townsend and I have known each other for a number of years. We worked together in Amadeus. I hired him into my team to help us with the Amadeus IPO that took place in 2010. And I think we had a very enjoyable couple of years working together. He then went on to work for Vueling and also for hotel beds, very senior positions in communication. But then in 2021, he set up Belvera Partners, his own company, for which he is currently growing at an extraordinary rate. So I really wanted to talk to you, Roman, today, especially about your experience of Belvera and starting your own business and growing your own business and scaling and bringing more people into it. So tell us a bit about yourself and tell us about how you got to Belvera.
Well, first of all, thank you very much, Eddie, for having me on your podcast. Looking forward to my free lunch, so to speak, to see what kind of snacks you got. Pleasure to be to still be in touch and friends and colleagues. After all these years, 15 years now. Here's to another 15.
Remarkable, isn't it?
Yeah.
So tell us a bit about your journey and how you got to Belvera and what I'd like to know exactly what Belvera does, where it aims to, which bit of the market it aims for, but most importantly, I'm interested to know about your philosophy and kind of values as you've got about setting up a business.
Okay. Well, about me, been in comms for pushing 25 years now. Left university in 2002 and worked in communications ever since. First of all, at the Houses of Parliament as a press officer, then moving into financial comms in the UK, in London, which is what brought me to work with you, to work on the financial comms for the IPO of Amadeus back in 2010 already 15 years. And that's when I sort of switched over. First of all, switched country to live in Spain, and second of all, switched into the tourism industry or the travel tech industry, which was a bit of a change from having been more of a financial services background. And pretty quickly began to like working in Spain and the travel tech space, and have continued with it. Welling, whereas director of comms was a slight deviation from that because that's obviously more B2C, although it was a corporate role. But that was a temporary thing. I was covering a maternity leave and had in parallel the role at Hotel Beds set up. Hotel Beds being a very similar organisation to Amadeus, just more hospitality focused than Amadeus being more aviation focused. So again, back to travel tech. And my main observation in the 12 or 13 years or so that I was working in the travel tech space in-house was that there are no PR agencies or marketing services or any kind of professional services really, but certainly in my area, PR, there are no PR agencies set up to focus solely on that space. And that at best what you could find were individuals or occasionally teams, but generally speaking, individuals who had good experience that you could draw on, but mostly they didn't exist. The options we went for, both at Amadeus and at Hotel Beds, was often to take on tech PR agencies and bring them up to speed at great cost. And then just find that, the person you were dealing with has moved on after a year. But we don't insist at great cost. Often when we put out pitches, I remember, I think it was after you'd left, Eddie, but the new director of comms wanted to have a global repitch. We had millions on the table for PR agencies. Edelman, Hill Knowlton, all these people flew in their travel teams. We've got an ex, Minister of Tourism for the US or whatever on the team. They pitched to us, and it would all be about, it'd all be B2C. They'd be talking about how we're going to have, we're going to interview 100 celebrities and find out what their favorite pillow types are. And then we do a campaign about celebrity pillows. And then that will get people to your hotel. And we'd be like, we're not a hotel. We're not an airline. You completely misunderstood what you've said. And your experience as the Minister for Tourism for Mexico or whatever is completely irrelevant to what we're doing here at Amadeus. So that was the sort of the the eureka moment. And I always felt someone should fill that gap. And that's what, when I left Hotel Beds in 2021, in the middle of COVID, I got made redundant. They'd cut the budget from big team down to just me to nothing. I immediately, right there, when they told me, decided, right, that's what I'm going to do. I'd been thinking about it for a few months. I think you and I had spoken. I'd said that's what I want to go away and do.
Mm-hmm.
And I set out right away that afternoon to start building the business. That's where we are.
Interesting. And so if you look back on it now and you think about the process of kind of going from the corporate world to setting up your own business, are there any one or two things that particularly stand out to you in terms of that little journey that you're on?
It's a huge journey, and it's a real change, because I'd gone from always working, never being employed by myself. Well, I have a bit of an entrepreneurial background when I was a teenager and in my sort of early 20s, but in terms of professional stuff, once I left university, I'd always been working in companies with a paycheck, and then in particular working in huge companies like Amadeus in particular.
Mm-hmm.
Hotel Beds was a bit smaller, but still 5,000 staff. And so the real sort of culture shock for me was, things that I'd never even given any thought to, like having a telephone or an email account, doing your filing your taxes, all those sort of things. Just how time absorbing and emotionally, absorbing that kind of thing can be, to try and just, do what you do when you're working in big companies, like breathing air. You just sort of consider it normal that there's air available in the room and that there's a drinks filter over there and you can go get some water and there's a toilet, you can use it. And suddenly finding that you've not got the equivalent. You can't use email, you can't use. And so the big sort of learning curve immediately was, I need to find a way to outsource this, because I don't have any expertise or experience in doing this.
Mm-hmm.
Presumably I can, I hope that I would be able to employ people to do those things at a much cheaper price point than I wanted to charge for my time.
Yeah.
So if I was pricing my time at 3x and I could buy someone at 1x to make the phones work and file my taxes, why am I doing that? And that was the struggle, because obviously you only got limited resources and money when you're starting, and you sort of think, well, how much of that do I really want to lay out? And I think that was the biggest sort of learning curve. And I was fortunate to start with, redundancy package. I knew that I was okay for about a year or so. I had money to invest in the company. I've seen other people who haven't started in that situation, or maybe didn't have the same mindset for outsourcing. I can see that they're just half their time goes into admin type things that someone else should be doing. And that really, I think that's a big drag on people starting the business at an early stage. I even see some people who've got quite big businesses, mature companies, dozens of staff and the rest of it, still getting dragged into stuff that, frankly, I just don't understand why they're even, bothering.
So you wanted to focus on what you actually do well, which is develop communication plans for clients and not spend your time doing your admin. It makes a lot of sense. So fast forward to 2025, and you were telling me between total sort of 15 odd people working with you, of which 7 are full-time members of staff. So that you've built a business, you've built a collection of people who are working under the Belvera brand. You must feel very proud of that. Did you set out with any kind of particular thoughts about what kind of business you want to build, what kind of environment or culture you'd like to develop?
I did, yeah, and it's been purposeful. But just to qualify a point, so there's about 15 people in the extended team, including some freelancers who are doing only, I don't know, at the tail end of that, maybe 5 or 10 hours a month.
Mm-hmm.
Full-time equivalent, if you add everyone up, it's 7 or 8 people. And there's a core team, about 5 or 6 of us, who are pretty much full-time and involved in the company on a day-to-day basis. Did I envisage that we'd be this big, this quickly? So we've been going 4 years now. I certainly would have been very, very happy with that if you told me that's where I would be 4 years from now.
Mm-hmm.
I think I thought it would be a slower growth period. But did I envisage that at some stage, it would be about more than just me, that there would be a team, that it would be an actual business, that there would be processes and so on? I did very much, and that was intentional right from the outset. And I think conversations I had with you and some other people who've been through this all said, you need to make a decision right now on day one in the business. Is this going to be a lifestyle business, in which case it's going to revolve around you, the hours you want to work, the lifestyle you want, the money you want, and just lifestyle business. Or are you trying to build something that is about more than you, that can make money whilst you sleep, if you like, and that one day you can sell? And in fact, it was the sale point. It was, do you want a business that just lifestyle revolves around you and you can't sell, or do you want to build a company you want to sell? That was the main
Okay.
thing I kept hearing people say. And I wanted to build something that was about more than me, for two reasons. First of all, because yes, I would, at some stage, a long time down the line, like to be able to sell that or merge that into a bigger organization. Not necessarily about having a payday, but in terms of growing the business and being part of something bigger. Secondly, as someone who 10, 12, how long was it? 12 years ago, I was very ill, had cancer, was off work for a year, as you remember. And I'm very conscious of the fact that your life can change, and you can find yourself in a situation where you might not be able to do your work. If you work in a big company and they pay your salary, or you've got the government support you, it's great. But if you're running your own business and it all revolves around you, then that will obviously all just completely nastily go out the window if you're unwell, or for some reason unable to work. If something happens in your life, a family member ill or something like that. And so I wanted to build something where it'd be a team environment, and where if something like that happened, I would be able to lean on colleagues and business partners and so on. So right from the outset, there was always I wanted to build something like that. And I suppose that's why particularly I was very rigid with, need to outsource certain aspects of this. This isn't my core skill set. But also it was that, you're never going to build a company that can stand on its own 2 feet without you. If you're involved in negotiating the best price on a desk telephone, or the Wi-Fi code, or all kinds of other things. So very quickly we had like an IT desk, but early on in the business we had a problem. Someone hacked our emails and was cloaking our emails to use to do mass IP cloaked email campaigns, like sending 1 million emails a day, and we got blacklisted, and none of our emails were arriving anywhere. So I had to bring in a professional IT company to undo all of that. It cost thousands, but it was money well spent, because there was a period for a week or so where I couldn't email anyone. I was having to use my Gmail account or something.
Yeah, must have been very, very trying. So
Yeah, it was. Yeah, and unlucky. No one else I know has had that happen to them. And I'd even outsourced, the email account to a company. It's not like I'd even done it myself. I had a basic website building company had set up the email, and they said they'd never seen that happen either. So maybe just bad luck. But yeah, there you go.
I think that something that I've heard often, the challenge when you start a business is that even though you may set out saying, I want this to be more than just about me, that very often you is the person that people want to work with, right? The person, so that inevitably at the beginning, particularly, there's an element that kind of all roads lead back to Roman in Belvera. So do you think when you think about, because I get the part about the admin, see that you can set that up and have a very conscious decision to do that. But when it comes to actually the core business that you do, which is to provide excellent advisory services for tech, travel tech companies, do you think that, are you also consciously setting out to build a bench of people so that the question I always ask is, can you take 3 weeks off and not have to worry about the business? Are you consciously building that kind of strength of executive that's working with you?
It's a huge challenge, and I think one of the answers is, if you're the type of person that can take something from standstill to where my business is at now, and hopefully something much bigger, then you're not the sort of person who can just sort of stand back. It's a bit like politicians, they never retire at their peak, do they? And with CEOs and so on, that's just not your mindset. You wouldn't have got there in the first place. So that is the challenge. And often, I would imagine that people in my situation, certainly myself, you're your own worst enemy in that sense, because you can't sort of say no and let go, and so it is hard. It is a challenge. Can I take 3 weeks off? No. Earlier this year, I took a 2-week holiday where I did do some work during that holiday, but I did have a proper holiday. It was a January period when things are quiet, and so that was easier to do. But have I managed with that? And that was the first time I'd done that. So I'd been away on family holidays. The kids are there. Everyone's on the beach, but I'm still really working and doing calls. This one I did a couple of calls, many emails, but a couple of calls. And that was the first time that I'd properly sort of unwound since I started the business 4 whole years before.
Yeah.
Have I got a lifestyle where I can balance taking my children on holiday and me being able to spend lots of time on the beach and then doing a few hours of work? Yeah, I've got that. Definitely got that kind of balance. So it's not like I don't have moments off. The weekends are pretty free, but am I able to walk away from it in the way that I was when I say Amadeus working for you, or when I was at hotel beds, and say, just call me if it's an emergency, and maybe receive one phone call and not have to look at my emails? Then no, I'm not. And will I ever be in that position? I don't know. I think that will be. I think that's always going to be hard.
Yeah. Well, and I think, by the way, that's very honest and not a surprising answer. I mean, you've set up the business from nothing. It is kind of your baby, and babies need a lot of care and attention and a lot of looking after. So it would be almost surprising if after 3 or 4 years of doing that, you were able to say, yeah, I can just disappear and it all runs itself. But of course, it's also interesting if you would have that as an ambition. So if we, and here's a more tricky one. So I think you might have read in my book about my idea, which I call mepathy, which is essentially this, that having a good sense of our own impact is a very important part of being a leader. So if we were to ask your core team, what kind of a boss is Roman? What do you think? What answer would they give?
um, I'm pretty sure that any answer any bosses gives is probably, never particularly accurate and always a bit self-deluded. Partly because I
That's
think
all.
that's human. It's
That's
human
me,
nature.
my friend.
Partly because it's human nature, and partly because, again, the type of person who starts a business and puts themselves at the front of things is that's often empathy. Maybe isn't their best sort of uh, their strongest quality, because I think the amount of challenges you face when you start a company, certainly trying to win your first clients and stuff like that, you have to have incredibly thick skin. So they're often the complete, again, the thing that gets you to where you are isn't the thing that will get you to the next bit,
Right.
Um,
But
but
just to say that
what,
the qualities that may allow you to win the business are not necessarily the same qualities that help you to lead the team. I think that's what you're saying, right?
well, that as well. Yeah, that as well. I mean, I was just talking about really about self-reflection generally, and how, people who build businesses often have very strong personalities and aren't very good at sort of saying no or hearing no or taking feedback, because if they were, they probably never would have started a business. You need to be a little bit deluded and overconfident. But what would the team say about me and my leadership style? I would like to think that they don't say that I'm sort of overbearing or micromanaging, and that I do allow people to sort of get on with and run accounts and run things. We are getting to that stage where a lot of the accounts, someone else is leading it. I'm there. I attend the meetings. I oversee materials and things like that, but they're very much leading these things. And I feel I place confidence and trust in them. So I would hope that they would feel that that's the case, that they're not having to be micromanaged or double guess me, or I would hope that they would say that I am relaxed and fair and kind, and that I don't um, make snap judgments or suddenly be mercurial or anything like that, or lose my temper. So I would hope that comes across. Often people in different jobs that I've done, different stages of my life, have all commented on how I'm quite a calm person,
Mm-hmm.
and that I deal with stress and pressure and don't rise, don't get easily baited or whatever, that kind of thing. So I would hope that would come across. And those for me are qualities that I really respect in other leaders. And certainly when I see leaders who lose their temper quickly, say insulting things, you know set people up against each other to fight, or like a kind of conflictive approach and stuff, I don't really have too much respect for them. Certainly for their leadership style. Sometimes I can respect them for the other aspects of their professional skills. But if you ask me if they're a good leader, I don't think that. uh, I can't think of many leaders who I would really admire who that was their sort of their sort of technique and style. I read the Steve Jobs biography, and I thought he was a fascinating character, but he sounded like a vile person to be around. I wouldn't have wanted to work for someone like him, and I wouldn't aspire to make that my leadership style. And I feel that all the success he had was in spite of those things, not because of it. But maybe I'm wrong. There are people obviously who see it differently and think that that's their idea of a leader. You know,
Well, I mean, I think
some scares and insults people into action.
the wonderful thing about leadership as a subject is there is no real right or wrong there. Nobody's written the definitive book about it. Everyone has to read it. That's it. We can all, and sometimes things work that are quite surprising, right? But definitely, I think that if you think about it in terms of you want to deliver something. So I guess in Steve Jobs' case, he that technology was what he was wanting to deliver, and then you want to build a team of people that help you to do it at scale. So then there's suddenly like a whole nother set of challenges in there, right? Which is, how do I build a team of people? And the question is, are you concerned about whether they're happy, whether they're motivated, whether they're excited to come to work, or you just want them to come to work and get on with it? And you did use the word kind, which I noticed. And I think that is a very important element of being a leader, which is to set out to be kind and to create an environment where people can be themselves and be honest. Is that the kind of ambition you have for your team?
It is, yeah, and that's certainly that's my style, and that's the kind of ambition I have. And I think that that's a long-term sustainable way to run pretty much any business or any organization, with the exceptions of ones where that went out the window before you even applied for the job. So maybe investment banking, that's not the way. I don't know. In the military, maybe that's not the way. But in the kind of thing that we're doing in our company, and for our clients, um, people are passionate about what they do. People are interested by it, but there's no one who's sort of like believing that they're really changing the world. Or the megalomaniacs like you can meet sometimes in investment banking or the military or something like that. And so most people are looking for an environment where they can have a kind of 9 to 5-ish type job, get some job satisfaction, be rewarded economically, be treated well. And if you can offer that to them, and they can then treat our clients in turn like that, then everyone will be happy, and you're going to have a long-term way of doing things. Of course, there are exceptions, and I think there are different environments. You were there, and I was there for Amadeus. It went through an IPO, an incredibly intense period. Same thing happened with Hotel Beds recently. When I was at Welling, they had a massive crisis. So there are periods when you have to say that all goes out the window. We need a very different approach.
Yeah.
But I think probably my leadership style isn't the right person for that kind of moment. Perhaps because I'm always looking to the longer term and thinking, if I do that, I'm going to damage a relationship with someone that is not going to take us through the next 5 years. I find it hard to just ever look at things and think, all I care about is the next 5 minutes. And there are times in life when the next 5 minute counts. If there's a fire in this building, I've got to get me and my family out of it very quickly. There's no time for being kind.
Yeah, well, that's back to the 3 types of leadership, which I don't know whether you're familiar, or 3 types of problem. The wicked problems, which is all about kind of emotional response requiring a leader. And then there's the tame problems, which is that sort of management type of challenge of improving processes, which I think is something else really important in a business like yours. And then you got the critical problems, which are the place is on fire, so we've got to escape, and that needs a commander for that. And so I think it seems to me that in your kind of a situation, there's that combination between the tame problems, which is how do we do things, how are we set up, are we organized, can people take time off, do they feel they're properly paid, et cetera, and then the wicked problems are like, where are we going to be in 5 years, and how's that going to evolve? And often the people part is quite wicked, because people are complicated and they have their own ambitions. Do you enjoy the people part of your work?
I do. Yeah. I mean, I think if you work in PR, then generally speaking, that's the case. It is a people, it's a soft skills type job. The hard skills of writing and presenting information and so on are a small part of the skill set. The rest of it is dealing with people's emotional needs and egos. I think even when you're talking about businesses making financial decisions and looking at spreadsheets, there's a lot of emotion involved. But when it comes to how brands present themselves and the messaging they use and so on, there's a huge amount of emotion involved in that. And so trying to take people on that journey often requires them to do that.
Yeah.
And in particular, because the service we offer is quite untangible. In fact, I just had a conversation with someone this morning saying, how do you present that and the KPIs you measure and so on. And you have to say to people, this is an entirely trust-based thing. We're going to explain to you what it is you need to do. You need to go on that journey with us. There's no spreadsheets, there's no Excel, there's no clear return on investment. And if you're not bought into this and see just intrinsic value in this, then we can't help you. And that has to be that's a personal conversation. It's the people run it. So that's the client side of it. Then obviously, so if you're a good comms person, you've often got that kind of empathy and relationship skills. And so I think you're better suited to them managing teams of people and being a boss, perhaps, more than some other roles might be. I don't know if you think about the contrast sometimes between people with very technical skill sets, like, software engineers and stuff. Just because you're a good software engineer doesn't mean you've got any, interpersonal skills.
Right. And when you're interviewing people, because that's a question that I often get from people who are scaling, which is how do we improve our process for hiring people so we don't make mistakes? And when you are bringing somebody on new to the team, you're quite a small team. You really want to make sure you don't make a mistake and bring somebody on who isn't a cultural fit or whatever it might be. Is there anything particular you look for, or do you have any kind of a special process that you like to follow?
Well, I think the first sort of things I'm screening for is, are they in the travel tech space? Have they got some sort of passion or interest in that? If they're not, then it's going to be very hard to integrate them into the businesses. We've got one or two exceptions, but generally speaking, that's the first thing. And then second of all, obviously, have they got comms experience, storytelling skills, knowledge of how to deal with media and conference organisers and that kind of thing. And those two things, comms and travel tech, right away, you're looking at sort of less than 0.1% of the people or whatever.
Yeah.
And even within comms or within in the travel tech space. So that combination's hard to find. And then after that, I'm just sort of looking, thinking, can I, bring them round to our approach? Do they want to work freelance, which is the model that we work on? They don't, and we can't bring them on. We're not in a position to offer permanent contracts. That might change, but right now that's not the model. Friend of mine, I started the business right in the middle of COVID, so I'm very nervous that find myself in a situation where fees go to zero from one day to the next, and we as a business have got all these jobs to people to maintain. So again, the amount of people that pass through those filters, you're pretty much left with what you're left with. Fortunately for me, because I've been in the space for a long time, I do have quite a larger pool of people to draw on because I have met all those people in the past. Again, and that was one of the other sort of things of starting the business. I thought, well, there are in-house comms people who've got this experience. They're just not working in agencies. And if I can bring those people on board, that'd be great. So there's several people in the team who are ex-hotel beds from the comms team.
Mm-hmm.
Or in one case, just someone who works in a different area of hotel beds and knew about the travel tech space. A lady who's now doing our business development, for example, called Vera. So yeah, that's often the things that I'm looking for. And then, a fit with someone who wants to fit with the team, can work remotely.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty much remote first business, or 100% remote first business. So that's the sort of, those are the filters.
But let's talk about that remote first. I mean, that's a kind of a new model. It didn't exist even a few years ago. I mean, you said you started your business in COVID. Well, the concept of the fully remote company I think it was beginning to happen before, but it was all completely boosted by COVID, right? Suddenly everybody went remote for a bit. When you look at that situation, do you ever wish you had an office where you could just all gather around and get around the table, or do you actually like the remote? Is it by choice that you've set it up that way?
Well, in an ideal world, obviously, all of the people that I employ would, come and live in the village that I live in, which is a small village in the mountains of Mallorca. And so I think we can rule that out pretty quickly. But yeah, it is a big change. So when I first started thinking about setting up my own agency, a long time before I did it, but I always imagined it would involve me having to move back to London, or maybe be living in Madrid or Barcelona or something like that. But I certainly never imagined I'd be able to do it out of my bedroom. And COVID has changed that. Technology has changed that slowly, but COVID obviously accelerated that. And then when you consider the very specialist niche that I've got, I'm never going to find all those people in one city. They're all spread around the world. There's quite a lot here in Mallorca because Mallorca has a lot of travel tech businesses. So there's several of us in the business who are based here, including our office manager, myself, Antonia, Marina, and so it's five of us
Hmm.
on the island, as well as actually the design and videographers who we sort of freelance with as well. Actually, that takes it up to about 7 or 8 people. But generally speaking, people are based where they're based. There's some in London or in other parts of the UK. We have an admin team who are based out of Ukraine, and someone based in China. So it has to be a remote first model. So I don't really think too much about something that I couldn't
Yeah.
have, toying with the idea of maybe one day doing an offsite where we get everyone together. That would be nice. We do get most of us together regularly because we go to trade shows and there's sort of 4, 5, 6 of us at a time. So I see pretty much everyone in the team, including the person in China. I seen them 3 occasions in the last year, including in China. But it brings its challenges. But as I say, I'm not going to hanker after something that I just could never have.
And
It'd be nice to have a big yacht or my racing team or something like that. But it's not happening. So.
Oh, yes, but it wouldn't have been that long ago that people would never even have thought of this idea. They'd have just said,
Yeah,
well, I need to look for people near me in Mallorca to build my company. They wouldn't have. This option has become an option relatively recently, and so
yeah.
I don't think the book's really been written yet that says how you have to do it. You're part of that experiment, I think. Do you, for example, do you get all of your team together online regularly? Is that something you do?
We do an all hands once a week call,
Mm-hmm.
which is starting to get a bit unwieldy because now there's so many people dialing in, and then it's do the freelancers only do 3 hours this month? Should they dial in and so on? So we're rethinking it.
Mm-hmm.
I had feedback from the team a few weeks ago saying that we're getting to the point on that call where we'd be going through a lot of detail not everyone needs to know. So we're now trying to work out when we need to take conversations offline, have separate meetings, that kind of thing. So we're reviewing that. I suspect we'll probably get to a format where we have several weekly calls where we just for different purposes. So yeah, that's one of the challenges. And then the sort of tech environment, how we communicate with each other. Right now it's just WhatsApp in WhatsApp groups. That works reasonably well, but if we get to 20, 30, 40, 50 people, can you have everyone on a WhatsApp group talking about, something that's relevant to only 5 people in the group? Probably not. In fact, almost certainly not. So there's all those kind of teething problems as we grow and evolve that we need to work through.
Yeah. Well, they're all
Keeping everyone in the loop is hard, but I suspect we'll reach a point where you can't keep everyone in the loop on everything.
I mean, you're describing those typical issues of scaling, right? Who do you involve, and how do we do this, and how do we make sure everybody's involved, but at the same time, we're not boring people with stuff they don't need to know. The problems are not different. It's just that the remote situation makes that a little bit more challenging, even, but in some ways also less because you just get on the call and you just do that, quickly. So yeah, it's really, really interesting. Do you think, could you ever imagine?
And we've got time zone challenges in there. The person in China can't do, the meetings with other people. There's someone in the US, you can't get everyone on the call at the same time unless it's super important, everyone has to be on the call. We've only ever done it like once, I think,
Yeah. So I didn't know about the Chinese part of your business. So that's you're servicing some specific clients in China.
Yeah, we've got a few Chinese clients. We've had quite a lot over the lifetime of the business, including working with Trip.com at one point.
Mm-hmm.
50, 60,000 staff. Huge business. I spent last year in China close to 6 weeks. I did one trip there that was 26 days, and another one that was about 10 days. Yeah. More Chinese work coming through as we speak. There's a lot of very large travel tech clients in China, or the online travel agencies or B2B companies. So just to give you an idea, we don't work with them, but we know the team there. Fliggy is a division of Alibaba.
Hmm.
And the Fliggy travel team, which is like a mixture of an online travel agency and a B2B travel tech company, has 6,000 or 7,000 staff.
Wow.
So big business. Who's heard of Fliggy outside of China? Even people in the travel industry often aren't, familiar with them, and that's because their business is really 100% China focused.
You're giving
So
yourself another extra headache there by having a bunch of business in a very far-flung place with, obviously, I would imagine, certain cultural, if not just the time zone, but also just the way of working, the way of communicating. Yeah, I imagine that must be interesting. Do you see that? Do you see that side of the business growing?
it's a priority for me to grow. I see a lot of opportunities there. That's why I spent one trip there, 26 days last summer. Um, when you go there, you just see this the user experience that they have for everything there in a tech user experience is just so much. It's so much more advanced than anything we have here.
Right.
Just pales into insignificance what we're doing here compared to how they are there. Give an example: you can go on the fast high-speed train there, and you can order KFC, and it gets delivered to your seat, not by KFC on the train, but by the KFC driver delivering it to the door of your train, and then the guard bringing it to your seat. Um, you know,
That's quite
Light years away from what we've got.
that's quite
So
interesting.
yes, I want that to be a bigger part of the business, and we're hoping for more clients in that space.
Excellent. Well, look, we're getting kind of the end of our time, and I know that you. Thank you very much for making a space to talk to me today. I really appreciate that. So I know how extraordinarily busy you are, and I think it's been really interesting. I guess just to sort of round it off, is there a word of advice you would give, or personal story or experience that somebody who is thinking about getting out of their corporate job and setting up a business like you've done, and here you are 4 or 5 years later, you've got a team of people, we've got a very healthy business running with tons of opportunity for growth. But I'm guessing that there was a few moments when you wondered what you were doing. And did any particular sort of pearls of wisdom from Roman, just to finish this off?
Yeah, I mean, people do approach me from time to time, and they're leaving their company, they've been made redundant, or they're sick of the corporate world, and they want to do this. And what I sort of say is, yeah, it's a fantastic opportunity. For me, have I got a better work-life balance? Yes, because I can work from anywhere in the world, and so on. Do I earn more money? Yes. I do enjoy what I'm doing more. Yes, yes, yes. Tick, tick, tick. No going back for me. But it's not for the faint-hearted, and you really got to, you know, have the mindset of I've got all my corporate skills and everything, and that's just going to be 10% of what I need for the next bit. So all the training you've had gets you there to be the professional, to do the professional. I mean, I'm talking about starting a professional services company, not starting a startup that is going to scale from zero to billions in years, or reinvent the world with some new technology or whatever. I'm talking about running a professional services company. Your professional skill set will be is now only sort of 10% of what you need. And do you have those other skills yet, or are you prepared to do those? Are you really resilient, thick-skinned, prepared to take the ups and downs that comes with the income variables? Someone asked me the other day, do you pay yourself a set salary each month? I don't. It just depends on, I take a view on how the business is going and what I can afford to pay myself and what we need to keep back in the business. Some months where that can be great, and there's some months where it's you're almost putting money in. And in fact, when I started the business, there was 9 months of no salary, and then there was a few months of half salary compared to what I earned before. And I put a lot of money up front to get invested, to start the company.
Mm-hmm.
And when I describe a lot of those things, a lot of people say, "Oh, okay, maybe that's not what I want." They sort of see it as like an easy ride, or a straight line to success, and it's not. You've got to badly want it. I kind of often take the view that people like that are capable of doing it just sort of born, not made.
Yeah.
I come from a family where several members of my family over the years have started and run their own business, including my own father, my grandfather, my uncle, and some other relatives who I'm not so close to, but those ones in particular have all had a strong influence on my life and worldview. And so I sort of see that as a normal, sort of thing to do. And if you don't look at all that and think, oh, that sounds like the challenge I want, that's the kind of the place I want to be, that's what I want, then I don't think it's going to work out. It's a bit like looking at celebrities and saying, yeah, I'd love to be super famous and have all the money and all the girls and the parties and all the rest of it. Who wouldn't? Yeah, or some aspects of those things. But do you really want to go through the route, do all the things they've had to done to get there and lead the lifestyle they lead? If you have no idea what it is that is involved in that, then you probably don't.
Yeah.
And I think it's the same about starting your own business. Yes, everyone would like to have better work-life balance, more money, more job satisfaction, to say, I built something. But I think if you are that way inclined, you probably would have already gone and done it already in some aspects of your life. And I did it in my late teens, early 20s with some, entrepreneurial ventures that I did while still a student. Or you'd have done it in some other aspect. If you're the sort of person who set up a successful social club or a political, networking event, or say, if you're the sort of person that does that kind of thing all the time, not for money, but then you're probably the sort of person that can make it doing this. If you're the sort of person that always likes leaning on the HR department, the IT team, and everyone else to make your life work, you're probably not going to have much success in doing this. At the very least, you want to set out with some other business partners who would take care of that kind of thing, or who between you're going to have the money to pay other people to do that.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of wisdom in what you're saying there. When I went to a very small startup company after being for many years in much larger companies, I used to call it the orange envelope effect, which was that in the big company, that orange envelope would arrive on your desk and you put your expenses in it. And 3 days later, they'd come back signed or whatever by some magical system. And when you go to a place where you don't have a chair, it makes you think, okay, I'm in a different environment now.
Yeah.
All right.
Wake up call.
Great talking to you, Roman, and congratulations really for everything you've achieved so far with Belvera.
Thank you.
I think it's clearly you've got a very clear idea, which is to aim for that travel tech market, which I think is extremely important for your success. And I look forward to maybe inviting you back on in a while to hear how it's been going and how you've been growing. But in the meantime, thank you for your time.
Thank you, or maybe not. Hopefully, different environment, and I can explain where I went wrong.
No, I think that's very unlikely.
Thank you.
All
Too
right.
kind.
So
thank you for your time, Eddie.
This has been the Free Lunch with Eddie Ross and Roman Townsend. Thank you very much indeed.
I've enjoyed it very much, Eddie. Thank you. Bye bye.